Hello, everyone, and welcome to what I guess you could call the start of a new series of me rambling about various things that I've read. The purpose of these videos is going to be for me to talk about various series or pieces of media that I've read that either I can't really do like a weekly review format for like I do for everything else, or it's just not something that I really want to do a weekly review series for. So instead, I'll just make like one relatively long video giving my overall thoughts on the thing as a whole. So to start this off, I'm going to be talking about the God of High School Webtoon. I had heard about this series for a while, especially with the announcement of the anime, which I will talk about a little bit before I start talking about the webtoon itself. This is the first webtoon that I've ever read to being up to date on, other than Solo Leveling, which is not on the Webtoon app. And for future reference, a lot of these are probably going to be webtoon series that I'm doing these rambling videos for. So if you want any hint as to what most of these videos are going to be about, it's going to be stuff like this. The only exception is going to be Dorohedoro whenever I eventually catch up to that, finish that. Hopefully I can get that done in like another month or two when I'm not as busy and I just have a lot of free time to read through it. So, to start off, I'm going to talk a little bit about the God of High School anime, because as far as I understand, it was fairly controversial and disappointing to the God of High School webtoon fans, people that have been following this series since it started in 2011, so for like almost 10 years. I can understand why some people would be disappointed. I did not really keep up with the God of High School anime. I watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I didn't really get like hooked into it. Like, I thought it was pretty alright, but I didn't really get hooked on it, and I never kept up with it when the episodes were coming out. And as it was coming out, I had heard 2 criticisms, which are both pretty closely interlinked with each other. The first one is that it's cut out a lot of the webtoon material. So a lot of the context for things going on, like the character backgrounds and various interactions, the relationships between the characters, they cut that shit out. So basically everything is happening with no context, and that results in you having no fucking idea what's going on, which is not good. And the second issue is that the pacing is fucking breakneck. Somehow, for some reason, Crunchyroll gave MAPPA 13 episodes to cover 118 webtoon chapters. So, to get this out of the way first, this is not MAPPA's fault. MAPPA did the best they could with the amount of episodes that they were given. It's all on Crunchyroll. And even then, Crunchyroll is kind of experimenting with webtoon animes because no one's really done that before. It's a pretty new thing. As far as I understand, though, the Tower of God anime was much better. I definitely think if they weren't going to give them a 24-episode season, they should not have had them do this many chapters for 13 episodes. They should have just stuck to Volume 1 of the webtoon and done that for the 13 episodes. The pacing still would have been pretty fast, with 41 chapters being adapted, and webtoon chapters seem to be much longer than, like, weekly manga chapters anyway. But good fucking God, if they fix the pacing for the next season, it's fucked, because you can't really slow down the pacing from that. You go from 13 episodes into having, like, this whole battle tournament and then god shit happening, and then right after that in the next season, it's like, oh, we're going to another dimension and fighting real gods for real. It's fucking insane. They fucked the whole thing. Which is why I decided to read the webtoon. So here we are now. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to talk about each of the volumes. This isn't scripted. I'm just sort of scrolling through the list of volumes so that I can sort of jog my memory as to what happened in each of them. I read this over the period of about 2 months, so the earlier parts of the story are a little fuzzier for me, but I read through most of what's currently out of Volume 6 in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So the more recent stuff I'm much more familiar with, and I'll be able to talk about much more in depth. So let's start off with Volume 1, The Match with Gods. So the introduction for God of High School is much more simple than fucking everything that comes after it. You've got a martial arts fighting tournament to decide who is the strongest person in Korea and then the world. And the person who wins this tournament gets a wish. They can get whatever the fuck they want. We get some hinting with Mujin Park at the very start of it that there's like, oh man, there's like magic, godly stuff going on with him crushing that island. You couldn't see, I was doing the hand motion over here. I don't know why I'm doing this if you can't even see me. But regardless, we get introduced to our 3 main characters, Mori Jin, Mirayu, and Dawi Han, and they're all fairly grounded for the context of like a battle webtoon, I guess. Mori does taekwondo, Dawi does full contact karate, and Mira does moonlight swordsman, which is like I think a made up swordsmanship style using a wooden sword somehow. I don't know, just because it's so good. It's so good, I don't even need a metal blade to cut you. I'm pretty sure that's a reference to some kind of puppet show thing that I can't remember the name of right now. Thunderbolt Fantasy? I don't know, I've never watched it, I just heard like a reference to it in YouTube comments. So it's fairly grounded. They go to this battle tournament, and at the start of it, it's pretty much exclusively like different martial arts fighting each other. You've got Taekwondo. It's RE Taekwondo. It's basically super Taekwondo. You have full contact karate, you've got the swordsmanship, and then we get into other stuff like, I think there's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we have Tai Chi, we've got fucking boxing, I think we had a boxer, we had a professional wrestler. We've got a whole bunch of different fighting styles. Most of the fighters are fairly unique in the way that they fight each other. And I'd say at this early part of the story is probably where the God of High School is the most consistent for the first 2/3 of the story. The climax of this first volume, where you have Mori and Dawi fighting each other in the finals for the regional tournament, Dawi's motivation to win so that he can save his friend's life, and the whole battle with Mori is very good. It's all very well drawn. I find that the sort of climactic battles are always the most impressive. I assume that's intentional. Overall, Volume 1 is pretty solid. It does a good job introducing us to our main cast, kind of introduces us to the forces at be with the Six and Mujin Park, and I believe we get some hintings at Nox in this part of the story. And I'd say overall it's pretty solid. Now we get into Volume 2, where we have the Nationals tournament, the national competition. And this is where shit kind of gets a little weird. But it's still good. So, in Volume 2, we're introduced to Borrowed Power, which is where we're getting a little off the rails here. So Borrowed Power is, as the name would imply, borrowing power from something else. There doesn't really seem to be a very clear limitation on what you can borrow power from. You can borrow it from animals, or dead historical figures, or gods. There's not really, like, unless I forgot something, there's not really like a clear rule on what you can and cannot borrow power from. So this is where we start to get into a little bit of the problems for God of High School, is that when we start off, it's very clear that this is like a martial arts fighting series. And now with the introduction of Borrowed Power, it goes from that into being like a magic power fighting series, and a lot of the time we kind of lose the martial arts fighting aspect of it, because after a certain point, basically no one is doing martial arts, or if they do, it's some variation of Ari Taekwondo, and it gets way far away from what it started off as, for the most part, which is where Ipio Park comes in. The fight against Ipio Park is one of the best parts of the series, I think, because you have Ipio using martial arts for most of it. I can't fucking remember what the name of his martial art is, but it's basically him strategizing and breaking down the weaknesses of Ari Taekwondo, and they have a really, really cool strategic martial arts battle, and then at the end of it, Ipio whips out the nine-tailed fox and does a bunch of crazy fire bullshit. I would say that this is the good, perfect balance between the martial arts aspect of the series and the magic powers aspect of the series. And the finale, I guess you want to call that, of Volume 2 with Taik J. Gall, with his avarice and absorbing the key, and basically turning into a god. There's all pretty cool stuff. I think it was all fairly narratively satisfying. Though, the introduction of Nox, it just, like, it fucking comes out of, I don't want to say nowhere, because it was hinted at, but you basically have people doing martial arts fighting, and then Mandiak shows up and he's like, cool, I'm now going to summon giant god swords out of the sky. It's a little jarring, to say the least. But I have to say, I was so proud of myself when I had correctly guessed that Morijin would have the powers of the Monkey King Sun Wukong. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Korean name that they use all the time. It has like 20 letters. I'm not even gonna bother with that. The reveal of that's pretty cool. I think the ending of Volume 2 is pretty good. It sets up some interesting stuff with Nox basically taking over, Mujin being thrown out of power. We're basically thrown into a dystopia. Kind of. I mean, everyone's living in relative comfort, but the evil people are in charge. So, that's bad, of course. The intermission between Volume 2 and Volume 3 is a flashback arc for Taijin Jin, who is Mori's grandfather, really his adoptive grandfather. It's very obvious that when it's revealed that Mori is not a human, he is in fact Sun Wukong, a god, or would they consider him a demon? Because they're different things. I don't know. Like, some of the characters call him a god, so I will say that Mori is a god. Yeah, that's why he was able to hurt the other gods. We need an explanation here. How the hell did Taijin Jin get his hands on a baby Monkey King? And we get that with this flashback arc where him and his fellow South Korean Special Forces infiltrate North Korea and discover the Monkey King. And it's pretty alright. They introduce, like, some weird shit with, like, these cyborgs and this one character that ends up being a traitor for I don't even remember. Like, that wasn't very important. Like, we're, 20 years in the past? Maybe more? I think? I don't remember exactly how long ago the flashback arc was, but fucking cyborgs show up in North Korea? Listen. You've got this guy with megalodon powers that absorbs a nine-tailed fox and becomes this horned deity that slays hundreds of angels instantaneously. And this monkey teenager kid has a staff that turns into a giant continent-sized pillar. But cyborgs in North Korea in the, I want to say, mid to late 20th century, that's where I draw the line with the realism there. It's pretty alright. But now I should probably get into Volume 3, which is where shit gets a little crazier than it's already been. So it's 6 months into the future after the end of Volume 2. Nox has basically taken over everything. The remaining executives and the contenders in the God of High School tournament are living underground, trying to find a way to beat Nox. And the essential part of the plan to doing that is finding the Monkey King's accessories. They've already got Yowie, his staff, but they need to find his armor and his flask, which is supposed to contain his memories. So you got everyone going to the Divine Realm. I think it's called Oreguk, something like that. I'm just going to call it the Divine Realm so that I don't butcher the Korean name that I can't really remember exactly. We get introduced to Sujin Lee, I think. Sujin. I'm just going to say Sujin. I don't quite remember if it was Lee. Who seems to be a super huge badass with an anime eye patch. So, when a character in, I guess I should just say Eastern media, has an eye patch, it's safe to assume they didn't actually lose an eyeball. They've got some sort of magic ninja eye powers, and it seems that Sujin has something similar to that, and that she's able to seal borrowed powers. And we eventually learn that this is because she has the borrowed power of Pandora, with Pandora's box, which leads to a whole host of powers. I'd say she's probably one of the better characters to come out of this part of the story, but I'm getting a little off track here. So, our teams of protagonists go over to the Divine Realm because of Sujin's fuckery. They all get split up and go to different areas. And I don't really know how I feel about this. The Sage Realm. Because even though we've just been introduced to, gods and stuff, it's something you kind of have to get used to. And then suddenly we're in a world full of monkey people and bull people. And there are dragons flying around everywhere. And I'm like, man, we sure are getting out there from where we started off. And I don't think you really gave me enough time or build up to get ready for monkey people. Even if Morijin is Sun Wukong. It's sort of like the monkey people are almost all drawn in this cartoony style, even more so than the webtoon itself. So they're just really jarring. They just feel kind of out of place, like they don't belong there. It's just weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it. However, King Uma, that is a great addition from this volume. Boy, let me tell you, do I like all of the personality that she has going on. Sorry, Chad, but in real life, the nerd with glasses gets the milk truck cow goddess. Man, what a fun character, actually. She is quite the hoot. But you've got sort of this arc going on with Morijin trying to get his shit back from the false Monkey King. Ibyo is supposed to be going around collecting the fragments of the key that were lost when Taik Jigal absorbed them and then exploded. But it seems like they just decided to not do that, and he just gets all of his power back from making a direct contract with the Nine-Tailed Fox. That was weird, because I was kind of ready for Ibyo to go on this adventure to go collect the pieces of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Collect all 9 pieces of the fox. Get all my 9 tails. Keep sticking them on my ass. My power level increases with each one. But then they just don't do that, and he gets all of his power, so I was like, okay, I guess. Now, the arc sort of comes to a head when, 1, Morijin gets all of his powers back, and 2, the Second Great War happens. So, the 3 gods of fighting, Natak, they're just collectively Natak. They each have their own names, but I can't remember any of them. 2 out of 3 of them have really good designs. The 1 out of 3 has an alright design, the really twinkish one. Overall, I quite like them. They're pretty cool. Though the title Gods of Fight is weird. Is that a translation thing? because normally we would just say gods of war. Because I'm pretty sure when Taijin is made a candidate for the new god of fighting, they call him like the god of war once or twice. I don't know, it's a weird thing. The title is kind of bizarre, like just from how we normally describe these things, but it's really not that important. So you've got this crazy shit going on, where you've got the three gods of fighting showing up with this floating mountain with a bunch of space whales and hundreds of thousands of angels. So you've got this army of monkey people fighting Nox, who's there, by the way. There's a skeleton guy for some reason. I know that's his borrowed power, but regardless. So they fight Nox and this big army of angels with their own army of monkey and bull people, and, you know, these high schoolers who now have god powers. And it's pretty crazy. This is where the power scaling gets really nuts, because Mori unlocks his clone ability, which is an actual thing Sun Wukong has. For those of you who don't know, he unlocks shadow clones, which are all able to use their own versions of Yaoi, which can get stupid huge. And he basically reaches planetary level. It's really crazy stuff. And as this is going on, I'm wondering to myself, alright, this, like, the power escalation is really high right now. How the hell are we going to have Mori go and fight high schoolers now? Albeit, you know, inhumanly strong high schoolers. How the hell is he gonna do it? Well, I have a solution for you. Why don't we put the real Mori Jin in another dimension for the next 140-ish chapters? I don't know, 130, 140 chapters? You know, the next part and a half of the story. Actually, no, it was more like part and 2/3 of the story. Put him in another dimension and have one of his clones come back, because the clone is weaker and isn't able to use as much of his power. And I was thinking, okay, I guess, alright, that's fine. I guess I should mention, before the volume ends, you have Sujin, who is another key, like APO. They break the taboo that prevents humans from beating the gods, and that's why they're able to beat him, because apparently the gods aren't actually that cool, which is okay. The gods aren't, like, super unreachable. They just established this taboo because actually the humans have the potential to be stronger than them, which is alright, I guess. Though it's kind of questionable how many of the human fighters are actually able to fight the gods. But that happens, Orega explodes, and Morijin has his clone... I think he has his clone take back Sujin to the real world. And upon returning to the real world, this is where we introduce to the King, who is the real big bad guy behind Nox. I know you thought it was Mandiak, because we've been building him up as that the whole time, basically. But no, it's actually the King, who is later revealed to be the Jade Emperor, who is Sun Wukong's not fan in Journey to the West. It's the guy that's pretty much the king of the Heavenly Realm, and with the big mess that Sun Wukong had made, basically fucking everything up. You know, Asian God of War, basically. Not like an actual God of War, like Kratos God of War, just fighting everyone and making a mess of everything. Jade Emperor, not a big fan of the Monkey King, but we get introduced to him, and he is the strongest character in the series at this point, pretty much. Dowie loses an eye, which for some reason they're not able to heal, even though they have nanomachines that are able to essentially save people from life-threatening injuries. You can't fix an eyeball. Alright. I mean, I guess you could say because it's a magic. I think he used the blade of Tathagata. So you can say, oh yeah, it's like a magic super sword. So, of course you can't heal from that. But now we're left wondering, alright, is the Mori Jin that came back to the real world Mori Jin, or is it the clone? And it turns out to be a clone. And this clone is later named Mori Hui. And we actually get, like, some interesting stuff with Mori Hui. Alright, now we're on Volume 4. Overall, Volume 3 starts off kind of weak, but it gets pretty nuts with, like, the later stuff. At this point, I've just accepted, alright, fuck it, it's Dragon Ball, whatever. Fine. Now we're in Volume 4 with the World Competition arc, and we actually get, I would say, some good narrative stuff with Mori Hui, because he recognizes that he's not the real Mori Jin, but is he still a real person despite being a clone. And his whole interactions with the rest of the gang and his convictions throughout this arc, it's all, like, pretty good stuff, actually. It's probably, like, one of the stronger narrative things in the whole story, to be totally honest. I was kind of shocked by how well they did the whole, oh yes, our clone, that's what we'll do to bring down the power escalation a little bit. But Team Korea goes to a consolation match to be part of the God of High School World Competition. And we get introduced to some crazy stuff. I know, I'm sure you already thought fighting gods at planetary level in the last volume was pretty wacky. But now we're getting into the Vatican, who's fighting zombies for some reason. Apparently there's somewhere where there's zombies. Okay. You have Team Japan, who are pretty cool. Fuck me, I don't remember his name. Listen, I'm not like super familiar with Japanese mythology, and that's probably why, for some reason, whenever Yamada no Orochi shows up in something, I'm like, oh fuck, it's Yamada no Orochi. Oh god, oh fuck, the multi-headed god serpent. Oh yeah, please, directly into my bloodstream. That is cool shit. Man, I just checked, this is already almost half an hour. Alright, looks like this is gonna be like an hour-long video. Fun. You got the dude from Macedon, who I can't remember if his name's Alexander or not. But he has Alexander the Great as his borrowed power, which I was like, yes! I just learned about him in my classical studies course. Fuck yeah, I love seeing shit that I've learned about in other forms of media. You've got that guy from the US. Hey, what the fuck did they name him? Dr. Doogie or something? And he has a big Monkey King clone with him, who's actually it. That was so fucking stupid, I have to say. And then you have the Knights of Malta, who are interesting because they're all clones of the Jade Emperor named Dante. Or, well, Dante is only whoever gets named Dante. But World Competition consolation match, I kind of have a bit of an issue with it, because we're straight up abandoning the martial arts aspect here, except with Dawi and that other dude that has the guy that created Full Contact Karate, or Kyokushin Karate. That's the last of your martial arts, folks. You've got the Vatican that are just pulling out magic Bible powers. The Alexander guy just has the powers of Alexander the Great, and otherwise he's just super strong. He's just super good. And he also has the ability to somehow make someone go through a pregnancy way faster than should be humanly possible, unless they specified that him having, like, his 9 children right after we see him leave the story is, like, 2 years after the fact. I didn't see that note. I don't know how the fuck he did that. Good on him, I guess. Doogie has, like, he has a magic suit, science magic, and he turned his brother into a big monkey monster that's sort of a clone of the Monkey King. That was dumb. And the shit with the Knights of Malta is less dumb, because it's sort of stuff going on with Nox. And we already know that Jade Emperor is busted. They've got god stuff, of course, they're gonna do wacky shit. But, like, it's basically just a magic fighting thing now. The martial arts aspect is almost all gone. And that's kind of unfortunate, because I think a lot of the combat is way less interesting now. Because it's basically just, I will throw this bigger, stronger magic power at thee. And it's not super compelling. But what can you do about it, I guess? In the meantime, the real Morrigan is in another dimension, going through a boss rush tower for some reason, so that he can get to a portal to go back to the real world. That was kind of dumb. I mean, like, the introduction to it was fucking stupid with that little Lego character guy. I have no idea what he was doing there, and he fights, like, a bunch of big ol' monsters, and then he fights this thing that looks like something out of, Alien vs. Predator. That's whatever, I guess. The end fight between Morihoi and Dante is, like, pretty alright, I guess. But I'd become sort of less invested in the combat, because it wasn't as interesting. Like, Morihoi's ultimate technique is him punching Dante in the face a bunch. So I'm like, okay, I guess. I don't know. World competition is, like, alright. It's okay. I don't think it's as good as the previous parts of the story, but it's entertaining enough. Now on to Volume 5, Ragnarok. Oh, I should probably mention, I don't remember if this happened right at the start of Ragnarok or right at the end of the last volume, but you have the introduction of the romantic relationship between Mira and Dawi, which is, like, pretty alright. I mean, I like it. I think it's pretty cool, I guess. It's sort of, it didn't really have a lot of hinting. I didn't think the build-up to it was great. Mira's inner monologue line about looking for a seed was so bad. Oh my god. Christ. Need for Seed, Volume 5, Ragnarok. Boy, is this volume something. So, you've got two things going on simultaneously. You've got the World Tournament, where you've got all of the teams fighting each other, and then you've got Mugen and the executives and all of the other people rebelling against Nox trying to go get the Sage's staff from the Jade Emperor so that they can bring Mori back to the real world. And Mori's basically like a god nuke, so if he comes back, it's just an instant win button. So Team Korea fights against all of these teams from other countries, and as you can expect by this point, they've all got a bunch of crazy, wacky, wild, busted powers. I'd say the only one that I really like is, oh god, what was his name? Rostante? The kid with the power of Hercules, who's also a descendant from Hercules. This is where we get introduced to the direct bloodline borrowed power. I think it's like lenderization? It's kind of different from normal borrowed power, in which you're just sort of asking this entity to use its power. Instead, you are already descended from this person, so I guess you've got, like, extra good compatibility with it, and you're even stronger. So the fight against the Hercules guy was pretty good. But, man, fucking Christ, Team USA, what the hell was going on? So, you've got someone who's doing a Supergirl cosplay, a big football player, and a Native American. I have to say, the Native American just gets, like, no diff immediately. I was kind of hyped for them, because they were the least stupid design out of all of them. But for some reason, the power of Thor gives this one girl the ability to fly and shoot eyeball lasers. Why? Why is there now Supergirl here as, like, a high schooler fighting in a tournament here? Why? That was really stupid. And then you have the football player. What the fuck did they name her? Was it like R Dougie or something? Doggy? Listen. I'm trying to think of how to address this. I was kind of surprised that they had trans representation in this. Like, it just didn't seem like something that would happen in here. And I'm quite pleased that they actually did. Like, I think the way that they narratively handled it was pretty good. Translation was kind of iffy, where Mira was like, "Oh, you're a transgender," and I'm like, "Is that how people talk?" Is that how people talk about this? Is that really how they talk about it? But it was just like, I didn't know how I felt about it, because I thought the design was still kind of questionable. But the narrative stuff going on with their character was alright. I mean, I think there are better examples, there are much better ways to do trans representation and things than that. But I'll give them a couple brownie points for trying, but I didn't think it was, like, really well done. It was a little cringe the way they did it, I have to be honest. A lot of the designs for the fighters in this world competition fucking suck. A lot of them are really bad. And a lot of the fights are basically, like, one-shot off-screen and stuff. I have no fucking idea what they were doing with this. Like, it's just not good. It's not very good. Then we get into the stuff happening basically underground. That's a little more compelling, because you have this group where you have the executive actually doing stuff, and you have the other bishops showing up, and they're crazy. Zhao Chen shows up. I didn't like Zhao Chen very much during this part of the story. I thought she was kind of obnoxious. And you have that one dude with the power of Asura, which is like, alright. I mean, I can roll with that. I really, really don't have that much to say about the ritual arc. It's pretty unremarkable, to be totally honest. Mori Hui's decision to not side with the Jade Emperor, because he doesn't value his own permanence over the lives of his friends. It was like good shit. I'm like, man, Mori Hui, you seem to have had even more character development than the real Mori Jin. Good job. Then Ragnarok happens. Oh, Ragnarok. I had heard a lot about this arc. Like, on Twitter and stuff, everyone's like, oh man, Ragnarok is it's fucking based. It's awesome. Ragnarok is a lot of spectacle. So, the heavenly realms come crashing down to Earth. I think the first 3 heavenly realms show up. And it's basically the end of the world. The gods show up and they're like, fuck yeah, let's fucking party. I'll talk about them in a second. But the Jade Emperor dies, basically. And everyone wants his eye so that they get the sage's wisdom, so that they can do, control of the natural forces. I don't remember what all the natural forces are. I think it was, like, I know gravity, inertia. Fuck it, I don't remember any other ones. I think you can do, like, a Big Bang thing, or I assume that's, like, nuclear energy or something. Honestly, it's the power to make big explosions happen, and to make gravity stronger. That's basically it. Like, he just controls the natural elements of the universe that make things not fucking impossible to exist. So, then you have all of these other gods showing up, and I have to say, I was really let down with some of these designs. The designs for basically the entirety of the Greek pantheon, except for Zeus, oh fuck, they're so awful. The Poseidon design, Christ, fucking terrible. The Hades design is bad, the Hera design is bad. Zeus is, like, alright, I guess. He's pretty okay. Why is Odin a demon? Why is it... Like, I've kind of gotten used to it by now. Like, it's alright. It's an alright design. But, as an Odin design? Why? I don't know. Beelzebub is, like, a generic demon. Satan actually has, like, a pretty cool design. Satan has a cool design. Michael the Archangel has a cool design. Uriel has, like, an alright design. And Garuda is alright, I guess. I mean, he kind of looks like Phoenix Man from One Punch Man. But I was not, like, really blown away by most of these designs. Like, I thought some of them were kind of questionable. So it was like, whatever, I guess. So, gods show up. Shit's a mess. Mira loses an arm. Dawi seems to die at some point. A bunch of crazy bullshit happens. And you're like, gee, what the fuck? Who is going to save the day here? Well, it's actually Dawi at first, because he gets the Sage's Wisdom, and he one-shots Zeus, which is one of the cooler moments of this arc, I have to say. Mira doesn't do anything for the rest of the arc, because she gets Avarice, and the Sage's body from R, who I need to talk about. My big problem with Ragnarok is it's a narrative shit show. There's a new plot twist like every 10 chapters about who is on whose side and what exactly R's motivations are. It's like, I'm reading through this arc, and I'm like, what the fuck is the author doing? Does he know what he's doing? It seems like he's just kind of making shit up as he goes. What the actual fuck is going on? Could someone please tell me? Please, someone, tell me what is supposed to be happening here. It's basically all spectacle and no coherency to basically the entire thing. Morijin shows back up, who at this point is super busted. He effortlessly defeats most of the other gods, and then has this big, crazy Dragon Ball Z battle with Satan, who has the power to basically do whatever anyone else does. I have to say, at this point, I'm really disappointed that basically everyone who does martial arts is just copying Mori and doing Ari Taekwondo. Like, the magic, something I like about martial arts series is that you have people of all these different styles that fight in distinctly different ways, and you get to see all these, very unique ways in which people fight and how the combat is choreographed. Now it's just everyone kicking each other in various different fashions. Otherwise, it's just big magic. It's a big magic happening. So they have a big, crazy Dragon Ball Z battle in space. Satan makes like 245 quintillion clones of himself, which is so absurd and stupid that I couldn't help but enjoy it, because these are gods. I'm like, alright, these are the beings that lord over all of creation. You guys should be doing some stupid shit, like creating 245 quintillion clones of yourself. Mori does like a big kick or something and the universe flashes off for a second. I still have no idea what exactly was supposed to be implied by that, but it was nuts. It was insane. Then you have a bunch more plot twists about R. R is introduced as just an executive, and then he's revealed to actually be a traitor for Nox, who is serving the Jade Emperor. And then we find out that he's actually not serving the Jade Emperor because he hates the gods or something. And then we find out that he's the Jade Emperor's son, and that he also has avarice, and that he's going to use it to free humans from the taboo that prevents them from fighting the gods. Like, R is so fucking inconsistent in how they wrote it. Like, they just keep changing what he's doing, and they call it a plot twist every time. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I think it's bad, actually. So, the arc ends with Mujin betraying Morijin, killing Taijin Jin. And then we get a flash forward 17 years into the future. So this happens, and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is going on? Oh, God. What the fuck are you doing, author? And because I'm a very sympathetic person, when I finish up Ragnarok and I see the author have this whole chapter talking about how they were really disappointed with the Ragnarok arc, and basically everyone was asking him in the comments, what is he doing? And I realized, oh fuck, I forgot that this is way more interactive between the author and the audience than like manga is, and he can straight up see everything that the readers are saying. Oh fuck, I feel kind of bad for thinking what a fucking clusterfuck Ragnarok was. And he seems to basically acknowledge that he didn't do a good job with Ragnarok. Like, it was a fucking mess. He didn't really do what he had wanted with it. So I was like, yeah, it was a shit show. That's pretty accurate. Now, what are you going to do about it, Mr. Author? I look here on the list. There's like 170 more episodes to this. What are you doing? So we get a time skip, 17 years into the future. And I have to tell you, it was really, really hard to get back into this at this point. Because basically all of the characters that I've become attached to over the last 300 chapters are either not there, or they're not there as much as they used to be. And we have all these new characters now, and the setting's basically brand new, and we have these new rules established where basically everyone has borrowed power now. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I'm feeling about this. And you've got this mystery at first about who is Mori Jin? Which of these people is actually Mori Jin? Is it Mori Dan? Is it Ahan Dan? Maybe Mori turned into a girl or something, or she's his daughter or something. That would be really weird if he already had like a 19-year-old daughter, only 17 years after the events of Ragnarok. You have Mori Jung. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this shit. But then we get the preliminary arc. And I'm like, oh, what do we have here? We have Natak back again. They have cool designs. Ahan gets the twinkish one, which is like fine. Moridan gets the dark-skinned one with the white anime hair. You know, the best design out of the brothers. You know, he fakes getting it because of what's-her-face with the Narcissus mirror. We have, once we get the reveal of Moridan being Mori Jin, who had reverted to a lesser state because of the Holy Grail being used on him and his emotional trauma after the events of Ragnarok, I'm like, alright, I can get into this. And then Dawi shows back up. Dawi? I have no fucking idea if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I am not Korean. When he shows up, and I had forgotten I had seen this before. It was like the thing from chapter 64 of Chainsaw Man with the astronauts. I had seen it before reading the series, and then had totally forgotten that it was from Chainsaw Man by the time I had reached that chapter, and I was like, oh fuck, I forgot that's from this. So the scene where Mori is crying, about everything that's happened, and Dawi says, don't worry, it was just 17 years. It only took 17 years to find you again. It was just 17 years. Don't worry about it. That is really, stuff like that, that's a really, really good way to convey what type of person a character is. That's probably one of his best character moments in the whole series. To be totally honest, that's one of the most touching moments in the entirety of God of High School. It's really good. So when that happens, I'm like, okay. Alright, I'm ready to dive back into this. So we go through another world tournament. It's good. We get introduced to a bunch of different characters with various different powers. We have the fucking kid from that Alexander guy. His name's Jose. I actually remember his name. Isn't that amazing? He's pretty cool. We meet Dean, who's from Ireland, I think. So I should probably imagine everything he says with an Irish accent. Alright. There's a dude with Garuda as his borrowed power. All of the really big badasses from last time around are executives now. There are more executives. Mugen has a dumb fucking design for most of Volume 6 thus far. But the new World Tournament arc is good. It's good. I like it a lot. It just sort of works. You've got Mori learning how to use and master Ari Taekwondo with his weakened body, and him pretty much reaching the level of mastery that his grandfather had, which he had never actually attained, because he was already so busted beyond all fuck that he never really needed to master it in the same way that normal human, if you want to call Taijin that. Like, the stuff that... These are not normal humans, okay? The stuff that these people are pulling off is not something that fucking human beings are capable of. But it's all good shit. Like, we're seeing character development and growth out of Mori Jin again. More than we had already gotten. So the World Tournament arc happens. You have the discovery of Moridan being Mori Jin. You've got him fighting all of the executives at the same time. You've got him punching Mujin Park in the face. It's great. It's fantastic. We get another war arc against the government. It's good. You have the various new members of the Six doing stuff. You've got all of the fights happening in there. You've got Ipyo's machinations from behind the scene. It's good shit. You're going to notice me saying this a lot, because honestly, once we get Ragnarok out of the way, like, it was very clear that in Ragnarok, the author was sort of like, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing at this point. Or, he doesn't really know how to do what he wanted to do at this point. So, it was a bit of a shit show. Volume 6 is what I call a soft reboot. I know some people may use it differently, because it's not actually a reboot, but you know how The Force Awakens is basically A New Hope again, in the same timeline? Like, you have different characters, but they're basically serving the same roles in the narrative, and sort of the same story beats are happening again. It's a soft reboot. That's sort of what Volume 6 is, because you've got the local tournament, and the world tournament, and you've got a war arc, and then you've got what's basically another Ragnarok, but way more narratively cohesive. It's good. It's really good. We finally really dive into Mujin's goals here with wanting to make humanity able to fend for itself. He calls it, like, human centrism or something. And in his efforts to make sure that humanity can't be ruled over and destroyed by the gods ever again. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's pretty fair, actually. Too bad you're a fucking bitch. You're a piece of shit. So, I can't wait to see Mori obliterate you. So we get the war arc. Mujin is dethroned as world president. Ipyo becomes the new world president, and it basically becomes... Well, after that point, we've got a new arc, sort of, where, oh fuck, Tathagata, or Buddha, basically, from the Journey to the West, who, in this story, Sun Wukong had killed at the end of it, somehow, is not really dead, and he's trying to revive. And if he revives, we'll have the real end of the world, the Rapture. I know, we had Ragnarok, which was only sort of the end of the world, but now, the Rapture is the real end of the world. So we need to stop that. So, it basically becomes a quest to stop or revive Tathagata. And it's pretty good. We finally get, like, the real motivations, like, everything that led to Mujin and Mandiak being places that they are. Because of the death of Mandiak's sister, and shit that happened with Beelzebub, because we had already gotten hinting at Mujin being familiar with Beelzebub in the first place. It's all pretty interesting stuff. Man, I really want to stop using that phrase so often, but I don't really have, like, any better way to describe it. It's all good. It's refreshing to get this stuff that we hadn't really gotten before. We've gotten a lot more depth to a lot of these characters. We're getting a much better understanding of them than we did at any other point previously in the series. And to top it all off, a bunch of crazy cool action is happening. So we get this flashback arc. Mandiak dies. Mujin's life has fallen apart. He's been dethroned as the world president. He's being hunted down underground. His girlfriend, P, is pregnant and also dying. And basically everything's gone to shit. So Mujin is given the option to resurrect Tathagata because he finds the crown of Sun Wukong and he puts it on. And he's like, give me the power of the matriarch. Make me the supreme god. And then that happens. The moon explodes, a bunch of angels show up. Mugen is basically if you mixed the designs of Mugen and Morijin and also gave him white hair. And now he's busted beyond all shit. He kills, like, all the angels. A bunch of the gods fucking die. Odin and Satan show up again, which is fun, because they didn't die at the end of Ragnarok, and they're two of the more entertaining of the gods anyway. And now, where we are currently, Mugen has basically taken over the world again, and he's doing, like, eugenics on a planetary god level, where he's just going around and killing everyone that he doesn't see fit to be members of his new and improved human race. So he's taken his human centrism, human supremacy thing to this ridiculous extreme. It's like a no true Scotsman thing now, where you're only a true human if I say you are. And he's pretty evil. And, holy fucking shit is his new design so good. The one red wing, and he's sort of got like this Buddha outfit on over his Hawaiian shirt. He's got the Sun Wukong crown, and he took Satan's wings. It's really cool. It's really cool. And you know what? I'm very excited to see where it goes. So, to sort of give my final thoughts here, I hope this was a coherent and enjoyable rant, first of all. Like, my ramblings, this is the first time I've done this. I hope it didn't suck ass. Maybe give me, like, some recommendations to make this better, if you did enjoy it. I'm genuinely very excited to see where the story goes from here. God of High School had kind of lost me once we got to the end of Ragnarok, because it was becoming so incoherent and detached from what it had used to be. It never really succeeded in melding together all of the different aspects of the series that it had introduced at this point, with the martial arts and the magic powers and the gods and all the crazy Dragon Ball fighting going on. But in Volume 6, they've really sort of cohesively put all these things together, and along with that, they've improved the narrative and the characterization, and it's as good as it's ever been. I would say that this is peak God of High School. Right now is peak God of High School, which is a great thing to have for the current ongoing part of the series to be its best part. So, with that, I'm very glad that I got into God of High School. I think it's pretty entertaining. It was enjoyable most of the way through reading it. I'm very much looking forward to 3 days from now when I can read the next chapter without giving Webtoon my money. So, I'm assuming, if you listened through this, that you have read the God of High School Webtoon, but if you haven't, I do suggest that you actually read it. It's a pretty good time. Don't let the anime dissuade you. It may have had some flashy animation, but ultimately, it was incomprehensible with the pacing and all of the stuff from the story that they cut out. So you should definitely read the Webtoon. It's a pretty entertaining time, even if the middle chunk of it is not very good from a story standpoint. It's still entertaining throughout the entire thing. And if you catch up, you'll have a pretty good, compelling story to follow from week to week, I guess, whenever they allow you to read new chapters without giving them coins. But with that, that's all I have to say for this video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so that you don't miss any of these rambling videos. If you enjoy other series such as Record of Ragnarok, Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, and Kengan Omega, I do videos on those series as well, so if you're interested in those, you should definitely check out my channel. If you enjoyed discussing any of those series, or you want to talk about God of High School to me or anyone else on my server, you should check out my Discord, because I have a link to it on my channel. You should definitely check it out. It'll be a fun time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.